Is Lamar Jackson worth $45 million per year? That is the biggest question of the NFL offseason, and the Ravens are faced with a high-stakes decision that will determine the future of their franchise. So today, we are going to set aside all of the narratives, and we are going to follow the data and compare Lamar Jackson to Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and the rest of the $45 million per year QB club, and you can be the judge. On the surface, many will scoff at the idea of not re-signing Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, and while I do think that the young quarterback can still win a Super Bowl, there are a lot of red flags when you compare him to his peer group. So for the purposes of the comparison, we're going to look at data over the last 3 seasons, and we're going to look at Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, and Lamar Jackson. So the first thing we want to look at is Lamar Jackson's ability as a passer. After all, this is a passing league, and he ranks 5th out of that group in PFF pass grade. And across the entire league, he ranks 24 out of 53 passers with at least 300 dropbacks. We can take this a step further, and we can break down Jackson's performance and look at it from just a clean pocket. The most sticky stat year over year for a quarterback when we're looking at passing grades. And again, Jackson ranks 5th, and he's only slightly above the NFL average over the last 3 seasons. We can also take a look at Jackson under pressure. Now, year to year, this can be a stat that can fluctuate, but looking over the last 3 years, we get a good feel for Jackson's ability. And again, he ranks 5th out of the group of quarterbacks that we're analyzing, and he's well below the NFL average. And lastly, we want to take a look at Jackson's ability as a runner. And as you all know, he is one of the best in the league in that category. In fact, he ranks only behind Josh Allen. So that is something that he can definitely bring to the table that is going to help whatever team he lands on. I have to be honest with you guys, I did not expect Jackson's numbers to actually come out this low across several of these categories. And it got me to thinking about a lot of different questions that I wanted to dive into to just try to figure out what in the world is going on here. So the first thing I asked myself around Jackson's performance is if this was associated with not having enough weapons. And with that in mind, I just wanted to isolate down to plays where he had Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown available to him on the football field. And guess what? Yards per attempt did not change. PFF pass grade also did not change. Touchdowns per attempt also did not change. So this is not the factor that's really causing Jackson's underperformance. So the next question I asked myself, do the Ravens have a problem with their offensive line? Is there something going on here where Lamar Jackson is facing more pressure, something like that? And again, the answer was no. Overall, the PFF pass blocking grades for the Ravens have been pretty good. In 2022, they did take a step back. And in fact, I found the opposite. Lamar Jackson, from a standpoint of owning pressure, is well above the NFL average. The average quarterback owns 14% of their pressures. Lamar Jackson last season was at 34%, and he's been over the NFL average every single year. So he is actually the one causing a big part of the problem. So as I continued on this journey, trying to figure out what's going on with Lamar Jackson, the next thing I really wanted to focus on is if there's a certain type of defensive look or something along those lines that's giving him trouble. And there was something that immediately grabbed my attention here. While he ranks slightly below the rest of this group against straightforward coverages, there was a big drop-off facing coverages that are changing after the snap. So showing one thing and then giving another. And typically what this means, it may look like 2 high safeties and it turns into a 1 high safety look, or a 1 high safety that rotates into a 2 high safety look. And in those situations, Jackson's grade was a 63.8. That was way below Mahomes at an 83 and Josh Allen at 81. The reality is we are seeing more disguised coverages than ever in the NFL. Over the last 3 seasons, they have skyrocketed. And when we look at Jackson over the last 3 seasons, he ranks 26 of 34 quarterbacks with at least 200 dropbacks versus disguised coverage. So the next thing I wanted to dive into is just really Lamar Jackson's mobility. We've seen in recent years that quarterbacks that can scramble, create scramble drill type of plays, can really have an opportunity to hit big plays that pure pocket passers can't. So So in this area, Jackson was actually better than the NFL average. He ranked 10th out of 23 passers with at least 50 attempts from the scramble drill. But when comparing him to the group of quarterbacks we're talking about here, he was well below Patrick Mahomes, who had a 92.5 PFF pass grade. Deshaun Watson had a 92.4, and Josh Allen was at 91.8, all well ahead of Lamar Jackson at 68.5. So having dug into all these factors, the other thing I just really wanted to try to focus on is, are there ways to truly help Lamar Jackson elevate his game? And the answer is absolutely. So the first thing I noticed with Lamar Jackson is when you use play action, he is an absolute beast. He was actually 7th out of 33 quarterbacks since 2020, and he ranks just behind Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in play action passing. And the flip side of this is trying to avoid non-play action passing. He's by far the worst passer of this group with a PFF passer grade of 62.4. He's multiple tiers below all 4 other quarterbacks that we're discussing. In fact, he was 34th out of 46 quarterbacks with at least 300 dropbacks since 2020. And lastly, you've got to let Lamar Jackson run. And by letting him run, it's not just scramble. You want to keep him involved in the design run game. Since 2020, no quarterback has averaged more yards per attempt on design run plays than Lamar Jackson. An astounding 22% of his carries have gone for 10 plus yards. So what does this all mean? Well, I think we can immediately come to the conclusion that Lamar Jackson is not an elite drop back passer. Yes, he is a dual threat option, but he's not on the same level as Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson. Quite frankly, his best comp is Kyler Murray, and he ranks behind him in multiple categories. His ability to deliver on a big contract is going to be tied to the ability to create big plays in the run game, something that might not age well. So having said all of that, the Ravens would be wise to shop Jackson if they can get the right deal. That doesn't mean they should give him away, but if anyone wants to look at a tag and trade scenario where they're going to pay multiple high-end assets, the Ravens have to consider it. Now, having said all of those things about Jackson, he is still an elite all-around talent, and you can win a Super Bowl with him. He just needs to be in the right scheme with the right surrounding talent. So if you're going to go all in on Jackson, you've got to be able to lean into his strengths, let him run the ball, get him involved in the design run game, use a lot of play action, and you're going to have to be very intense about helping him understand how to diagnose all of the disguised coverages that are the rage in the NFL. So with all of this said, if I am running a team, I'm not paying Lamar Jackson $45 million per year unless I feel that I've got a coach that can run the type of scheme that's truly going to make him successful. And again, folks, someone is going to give him the money. It's just a matter of who.